So
Yeah.
how did your mom, when the house burned down, was there a difference between how your mom accepted the money and how your dad accepted the money? Could you not tell your dad that you were receiving gift cards or whatever?
You
Or
know, I'm pretty sure he knew because, um, I mean, he would have known anyway because how else would we have explained what we came back from Walmart with? So I think with the fire, it was easier for him to receive.
hmm
Um, it was also that same year he ended up having a stroke and then couldn't provide for us later on.
hmm
And so it was more of after he had that stroke, um, he couldn't receive help or
hmm
certain help, like, like I said, like health insurance or food stamps, something, anything to help your family survive. And
hmm
that is what pissed me off. I was like, we are falling apart, have his family suffer, then suck up your own pride. It's not your fault that you had a stroke that left you a certain way.
Do you think that he was coming from a fear of judgment or from the community or from self-judgment that he wasn't able to provide for his family or from like generational judgment that this is just what a man has to do?
I think
Where,
it, yeah, I think it's a lot of both because both of his parents were in the medical field. His dad was a cardiologist in World War II, and his mom was a nurse. I think she
Mhm.
was a cardiac nurse. Anyway,
It's pretty
but
unusual. That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
yeah, so let's see. So the war had
Mm.
just barely ended by the time he was born, but still it was that mindset of just how horrible certain bishops that would maybe it was pity that they took on us. I didn't care. I was like, thank you for the help. But then as soon as like that guy left and then another one came in, no, we've been helping you guys out and no, like we're not doing this for you. Like any like events that we would have like where food was involved. Oh, I'm going back for seconds because you know I'm only eating beans at home and stuff, so I need something else to eat. And then I'm getting shamed because I'm a girl and I'm eating, the portions of like a man, yet I'm fucking stick skinny. And then so sometimes after the event there would be leftover food. And every now and again someone would say, "Hey, why don't you give it to them, our family because they need it." And then one year someone asked if we could have it and the bishop said no.
Really?
He was the first example I had of the abuse of men in power in that church,
Hmm.
which is interesting because he didn't even, because let's see, I was maybe 13, 14 by the time he showed up. So it was like I had been okay
Hmm.
with like these other men, trying to help the family and help support us. And even with some of the domestic violence going on at home. And then this guy shows up and he fucking turned it into hell.
Hmm.
He perpetuated everything and made it blow up even more.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
yeah.
still angry,
Huh. Yeah.
obviously, with him.
Obviously. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
with
really
him and
funny.
everybody else like him. So then did you start seeing more and more of that because, what you focus on expands? Is that what it was? Like before you just hadn't noticed that, do you
You
think?
know,
Or
I did notice stuff, but it became a lot more apparent as a teenager, especially when I was dealing with a lot of stuff and feeling
Mm,
suicidal and not knowing who I could trust or who I could turn to. So this particular man, like I had gone to him and mentioned, hey, we're
mm,
being abused at home. He thought I was full of shit, told me I was a liar, didn't believe me. Other siblings went to him and said the same thing. He thought we were all full of shit. Well, then this lady, I was at church, like sitting out, kind of outside the main area, and there was this woman who had moved in who was new, and she started talking to me. And again, how conversation comes up with a teenager, I don't know. Maybe it was just back then people were like, I can tell you stuff because I know you're a safe person. You
Uh,
But she told me that she had tried talking to this same man, this same bishop,
mhm.
about her husband sexually abusing their daughter. And that bishop told the wife that it's her fault. She needs to do better. And if any of this was going on, like he didn't believe it anyway.
Oh
But
my God,
why
what a
would you
fucking
make up such
douchebag.
a yeah, yeah.
Oh my
And this
God.
guy only had sons. How that, so I'm just like, this is part of the issue. It's like women coming forward and not being heard, not being listened to, not being believed. And
Mm,
of course, this
mm,
was back in like the 90s. Nowadays, I mean, we've got the MeToo movement, we have a lot more
yeah.
things going on. And at the same time, there's a lot more ways that people can abuse the system and um, uh, make it's it's hard because there's a lot of truth to the claims that have come forward. And at the same time, we have to be very, very careful how we handle things.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I feel like, um, yeah, I feel like the We Too movement was a breath of fresh air, but then I see women doing it to themselves, and I'm like, what the hell is, the message is so mixed, and it's so convoluted, and it's so confused, and it gives credibility to, the claims that these women are coming on to these guys, and, I mean, all the bullshit lies that come up, you know, but women give that credibility themselves. And that just blows me away. It's like because our culture has trained women that that's how they're supposed to be, that that's what they're supposed to do. And it's just mind-boggling to me that
Tell me,
we have so many mixed messages, you know?
say more about that with the women turning it on themselves.
Well, I mean, I feel like especially like young girls feel like they are not validated unless they, dress a certain way and post photos of themselves on TikTok and YouTube and all over creation and Instagram, and this is how they want to be. Well, that's lovely. Do they think that's really liberation, or is that really just feeding into the values of some social norm that has been put out there by guys, And what is
Yeah.
what is real? What is the real situation that's actually going on here? You know? Um, it's very, I mean, I was raised with the idea that, you could be a woman and you could be valued for your intelligence. You could be valued because you had half a brain and you knew how to use it. You didn't have to be dressing a certain way and throwing your body around and, you know, just having that attitude that you were there to serve men and that this is why, the sole way that you could gain any kind of value for yourself. And I just wonder, like, whose value really is that? Is that because women really want to be seen that way? Is that because women really want to be that way? There's such a thing as being sexual, and then there's such a thing as being sexual because you value yourself, and there's such a thing as being sexual because you are starved for somebody else to value you, or society to value you or something. I just wonder where it all comes from.
Yeah. That's a That's a really good point. And especially with your upbringing, like being taught healthy ways. I'm like, where did you grow up? Because I'm so glad that like someone was teaching you some positive things.
Well, I was taught that maybe to an extreme, though. I mean, nobody really focused on the sexual aspect, but yeah, I mean, that's what I was definitely raised with. You know, you're as intelligent as any man. You can have any career you want. You should be striving to make yourself the best person you can be, you know, within your own context. So, I mean, I just always assume that most people grew up with that value, but obviously that's not true. And there's a lot of damage and a lot of trauma around people who really don't value anything about themselves, you know.
Yeah. And people being critical and bullying, and the shame doesn't help
Ah,
anyway.
the
And so,
shame and the judgment and the bullying. Yeah, it's all there. And it's all tied into this, you know.
yeah.
If you're not a certain way, if you don't, I mean,
You know,
God help you if you grew up to be like the fat kid or something,
oh my God, yes, because oh, because even adults are bad and they will just
Yeah.
shame children
Mm,
and bully them.
mm.
I was thinking I was thinking recently, about the difference between like culture's messages and then like religion's messages and family, da da da. Well, if because Mormonism is a religion and it's also kind of its own culture and community,
Mm-hmm.
and then the family is supposed to abide by everything in Mormonism. So it was kind of like I was enmeshed in my own when I went to school. I was kind of protected from some of that stuff because there were so many other Mormon kids around me. So it was almost like we found solidarity within each other of like, okay, we can get through whatever is being thrown at us because we at least know where we stand on other things.
Great.
And so I think that kind of helped save me from a lot of like the excess outside bullying and other things that were happening. And I know it helped me in the sense of because of all the sexual abuse that had happened, it was like I am not letting a man ever come near me. I'm not letting him ever touch me. If I ever date, fine, but I am not kissing anybody unless I know he is the man that I am going to marry. Like, fuck this shit. Like,
Well, at least
no.
that was culturally sanctioned in the Mormon
Yeah, and
religion.
thankfully,
You can
so
hide
so
behind
that
that.
yeah, so it was easy for me to say like, no, it's against my religion. Like, no.
Yeah.
So I went on a date with this, but I felt like pressured into going out with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm living on campus. I'm in like an experimental dorm where the girls are on the top floor, the men are on the bottom floor. And so I'm like, okay, well, again, that kind of helps save me for if he's trying to get into the building. No, no, you can't come up here. It's only for women, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
I was terrified. And I went and I found the resident assistant for the men because he was gay. And I knew that I could be safe around him. And I
Uh-huh.
said, dude, can I bring you as a backup to this date or something? Like, I'm terrified. Do you have like a taser or something like pepper spray? And he's like, he gave me his cell phone number and he's like, here's what I have. You call me if, whatever. I'm like, okay. Well, I mean, I went on the date with this guy, whatever. I was trying to end things as quickly as possible. He brought me back to my dorm and he tries to come upstairs and get in my room. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, no, you can't be in here. No, you can't be in here. And he still weaseled his way in there. And then it was like, so he ends up in my room and he's trying to sit on my bed. So I go and sit on my roommate's bed, which is on the opposite side. And I'm trying to get him the fuck out. I'm like, what? How did this even happen? And
Uh-huh.
so all this, I don't even remember the conversation. Eventually, I got him out the door and he's like, well, can I have a kiss? And I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And so I said to him, I only kiss guys I'm going to marry. it's, so he's like, well, can I have a hug then? And I think I gave him a sideways hug. And I was just like, Oh, don't ever like, so when I talk about don't ever go on a date or do anything that just makes you feel yucky, don't do it. So it's like, yeah, it's these things that are expected of you and the way that you're supposed to behave. And like men can still just bulldoze whatever boundaries you put up. And it's
Mm.
like, it doesn't matter that you said no once. You have to say no 50 million times. And sometimes they still don't get it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
well, they feel like just because you went out with them, you owe them something. This
yeah,
is
I paid
that
for your
obligation,
dinner.
right? Going back to
Right.
obligation versus giving, right?
You're absolutely right. It is an obligation.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Even I mean, going out with people, I mean, I always felt like, yeah, I'm gonna pay my own way, and then the obligation maybe won't be there, you know? You know? Maybe it
And I
will, maybe
was
it won't, but
Well, and I was one of those women that I did not want men to feel pressured into the roles that they were pushed into. So even if I was asked out on a date, I would offer to pay, do you want me to help pay? Like I'd offer to go Dutch,
hmm
at least something, and then I'd be told no. But it was like, again, not wanting anybody to feel like they were forced into these roles and expectations.
Yeah.
um Opening doors, like some people have a real big problem with people opening doors for them. I just think it's
Mhm.
polite.
I think it's a
um
point of politeness. I would not ever fault somebody for holding a door. I thank them.
yeah,
Thank you.
I don't see it as disempowerment. I don't see it as like you're weak, you can't do this yourself. I think of it as being like a kind human being. You're
Right.
just, you don't have to do it, you have a choice.
Yeah, I'll
And there
fight
are
a
some
different battle
women,
on a different day, and that's a stupid place to draw a line, I think. But
yeah. And so with so when I met my when my husband and I went on our first date, um so he had one of the key fobs to unlock his car. And so I didn't realize, like, hey, that unlocked his door as well. Because so he had opened the door for me. I got
Mhm.
in. He's walking around the back of the car. I didn't know he's looking in. I reach over to open the door for him,
Uh-huh.
like lean over to open the door for him. Because again, I'm being
Right.
nice. Like,
Right.
he told me, he's like, that's when I knew you were the one. No one has ever done that for me. And
What?
I was
What?
like,
Excuse
oh
me.
my God.
Hello. Point of politeness. I mean, who doesn't open the door for somebody if they can or something? I mean, that's just a point of common sense. I mean, I hold doors open for people all the time. People. I don't even register. Are they
Yeah.
men? Are they women? Somebody's behind me. They've got a coffee and they just were in line, here, let me hold the door for you. You got your kids, you got whatever. I'll hold the door for you, your whole family, or if it's just a guy who's, some guy, sure, I'll hold the door for anybody, it's like I would not attach any kind of anything to that, really. It's the
Yeah.
kind of like common decency, but hey, I don't know. That's weird. That's really weird. Interesting though, huh?
It does make me want, I am curious about the narratives running through the heads of those who have such an issue with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can
I've
remember
heard
like
some from my sister because she doesn't like it, but
I kind of thought that went away with like the early days of like women's lib, where women had to feel empowered and all this stuff and it was like a point of pride that they could open their own damn door or something. But I don't know.
yeah. So I mean, I can see it from that way. So really, I feel like it comes back to the wounding that happened, which is
Hmm.
why you feel so strongly like, for or against something.
Yeah. Yeah, there's got to be some kind of a wounding or some kind of a event or a trauma or something. You have to attach some kind of a meaning to it if it's going to mean anything, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just an event. You just let it go.
My husband and I were talking the other day about people changing their last names, you
Hmm
know? And I had a sister who wanted to hyphenate her name, and I was like, okay, whatever. And then I
Mm-hmm.
had a sister who kept her name, but he's got a better last name than we do. Why aren't you changing it? Anyway, that's her thing. That's her whole deal.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
did you
when
change your name?
I did, I was like, I hate my maiden name. I do not want to be a part of this family. Please give me your name. I don't fucking care what happens. Just give me your name.
There
And
you
so,
go.
because my husband's adopted, he doesn't really have an attachment to this name, but he's like,
Uh-huh.
well, okay, it's easy. Like, he would have been cool doing whatever. Either he changed his name, we left
Uh-huh.
it. I assume, like, you either pick a new name or you choose the person that has the more fun sounding name or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be a
That's
power
interesting.
play. Like, make it fun.
That's kind of cool. I like that idea. Just pick a whole totally random new name for your new self and
Well,
your
the
new
name
life,
that,
right? That'd be kind of cool. I like that idea. I didn't change my name, but I didn't get married also. Like I didn't want to get married. Like I never wanted to get married. It was never in my script particularly. And but after I lived with my husband for so many years, it was like, what's the point of not? Because everything is kind of legally ours anyway. So, but I just kept my maiden name because it was kind of what I'd been for so long, and it was just I felt like that was my identity, and why change it? His name was no better than mine. I didn't ever particularly like mine, but his was even worse. I was like, I'm keeping my name. I don't know. You can keep your name, I'll keep mine. It's fine. And I don't have to do a lot of paperwork to switch it over. Yeah.
yeah,
But I kind of got married out of a sense of practicality anyway. It was like, oh, we'll get married on the 30th of December so that we can catch our taxes for the last year, you know? So, yeah, but yeah. I don't know. After you live for someone for 12 or 15 years, what difference does it make?
right. Like, because at some point, I know some states kind of consider you legally married.
They do, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's no thing about like a common law marriage. Like if you consider yourself to be this person's partner, then you are basically. It's like people always think, oh, you got to be with somebody for 7 years and you have to declare that you're their common law spouse. Well, no. If you leave them and you go to a court and you want like alimony or something, then you can force them to give it to you anyway, you know? So whatever, so especially if the kids involved, the whole thing is really legally complicated really fast. But,
Hmm.
yeah.
Important to talk about because I feel like a lot of it is like interconnected because if we're wanting harmony with the masculine and the feminine,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And what do we call this work that we're doing? Is that what it is? It's like a masculine feminine reintegration with ourselves and our lives and our society. What are we trying to do here? What are we doing? I mean,
well,
it's so
y-
empowering. It feels so empowering, but what is it?
well, I'm wondering how much of this is related to identity because your identity is ever changing and ever evolving.
Mm,
And you know, so are you if you choose to have that mindset.
right.
And to take the opportunities to you know improve your life, find the peace, make the peace within yourself, whatever it is that you need.
Mm,
um and a lot of your identity really is tied to your sexuality.
mm,
um and then when you're told that you cannot be a sexual be so it's like you're given all of this stuff and then told you can't ever use it.
mm.
And so
Can't
it's like,
ever
well,
appreciate it. You can't ever use it. There's the other side,
yeah,
you know?
you're right. And so it's like, how are you supposed to be able to love and accept all of yourself when you can't even access all of yourself?
Mm,
And then also like the way that we have been trained and groomed into being certain people when again, really that's not who we are. and we're having to put on so many masks just to be able to be in the same room as someone, for example.
Mm.
Like I had a Mormon mask because it was just like it, because behind it, it was me feeling terrified because none of it felt right. I didn't feel safe there. And yet I
Right.
knew like, hey, but if you want to be with the love of your life, if you want to be with him forever, you have to stay here. You have to do everything. So it was so maybe it was more fear motivating. Yeah, oh yeah, that whole religion is fear motivated. It's not
Mhm.
love. And so yeah, and then even just thinking about how how some women can't they aren't even allowed to receive an education because knowledge is power. And so it's taking away from your potential of who you can be.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's really useful though to see that as like all these different roles that we play and that we're really sort of shapeshifters just to get along, and that's okay. As long as we remember as long as we don't get lost in that, and as long as we don't hold so closely to that that we can't remember who we are, that's I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck. They don't remember who they are or that they're not this role that they're playing or that they could possibly change that without creating so much turmoil because they're trying to hold on to that, this whole idea about themselves. It's like, what's to hold on to?
Yeah.
What's to hold on to?
They don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to make people upset,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
feeling like they are valued or that their dreams matter.
Yeah, because other people become more attached sometimes to our identity than we do. And they want
Hmm.
us to stay the same. They don't want us to change because that affects their belief about everything that they've built up around us and them and everything else. You try changing and your parents will freak out. You try changing and your spouse will freak out. You try changing and, your kids will disown you. I mean, any of that sort of thing could happen, you know?
Yeah.
You lose your job if you change too much. You no longer conform to the workplace.
Yeah. Having a backbone. Oh, and then you get in trouble. Or
Yeah.
having ethics. Oh, and then you get in trouble. So
Yeah,
it's,
right?
yeah, it feels like being pigeonholed and not being, and knowing. So it's more than being pigeonholed. It's like feeling like you're a trapped animal. And no matter
Mm.
what you do, you cannot leave that corner that you're in. And you
Yeah.
might be trying to climb up the wall or run through something or just keep running, but you're not going anywhere. You aren't able to because you feel so bound, like you're in bondage, and not the good
Mm.
kind of bondage.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like analogous to being a trapped animal though, because you are trapped in this role and you're trapped as that identity. And then, yeah, it starts to feel very uncomfortable, right? It feels very
Yeah.
uncomfortable and you try to escape. And it seems like sometimes the more you try to escape, the more trapped you feel. Mm,
Yeah. The tighter things latch on
yeah.
or people latch on.
Yep.